All right, how do you want to start this out, Bob?
I'd like to start with the discussion on the Drown Road facility first, because I've asked Brian Seitz to come and share an idea that may be beneficial to the community and beneficial to, it's a tool in a toolbox, if you will.
Okay,
So,
we're ready for you, Brian. We'll have you come up and introduce yourself and explain what you do and.
if I could give a little bit of background first.
Sure.
So, as you know, my request was for the council to look at these two options and to come to a conclusion whether there's interest in moving forward with this or not at all. But if we look at our community and we look at the age of our community, for this proposal first, we have a lot of people who are aging, and we have very limited programs, housing, or options, and particularly as we people age out. Last year I experienced my mother-in-law passing, and the difficulty of getting a bed for her, transitioning over the last few years from independent living to assisted living, and then to end-of-life care. And one of the things that I think is obvious to everybody is the cost. And so my proposal is to start a conversation so that we can position ourselves to have some options. And so the Drown Road facility, to my mind's eye, is a great facility for transitioning. It's a 3-story building that has an elevator in it. If you looked at the memo that Matt sent out yesterday or today, but it showed a nursing station in that facility. So what I'm asking the council to do is to give Matt the direction to begin a conversation with the people that manage the Drown Road facility and look at ways that we can convert it, utilize it, outright ownership. I think Matt laid out a pretty good, clear list of options here about the direction we could take. I don't view this as a short-term goal. I think this is long-term planning. I'd like some quick feedback, but then I would like to introduce Brian Seitz and let him give us a quick synopsis of what he has.
Bob, are you talking about the old Drown Road school part?
Yes.
Not the new apartment part,
Well, the whole facility.
the whole facility?
Whole facility. If you look at, how many, is there 60 units there in total?
I think so, Bob. I think so.
So too.
Yeah, I believe so. I think originally it was 28, I think, and then it grew from there.
Then they put the wing on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't have an exact number, but I'm going to use that as a number. So let's just say that they were amenable to giving us 10 units or 15 units or I think, from my perspective, there's a lot of unknowns that we don't know about, but unless we have a conversation and see what their interests lie in, they may frankly tell us we have no interest in doing anything with you. So, I'd like to start the conversation with them.
Bailey?
Yeah, that's me. First of all, Bob, thank you for pulling this together in the manner that you did. It's the way I love to see things, very articulated. But I think my first thought goes to, while I personally am in support of it, coming off of the referendum and the kind of dialogue surrounding that, which I think during that time, my takeaway was also that there was more support for elderly housing, which I think is a positive in the way that you frame this. But would also love to understand what the conversation has been at the comp plan level, from like, has there been any conversation about this type of housing? Could that be something that's worked into the dialogue if we do pursue, having a conversation? Because I think these things take time, so it would be a good conversation to have in tandem with them working on the comp plan, but just kind of if that's been any conversation. That's to you, Bob. Has it? Aren't you on the comp plan?
Yes, yes. There haven't really been any of those type of conversations. I
Okay.
think the conversations we've identified.
Yeah.
The survey has said that there's a need for that type of,
Housing?
yes.
Okay.
Because the conversations we haven't written a chapter on housing in
Okay.
that level.
I think it would be helpful to get some consensus from that group as well to better understand. I just think a lot of the failure behind, my takeaways around the failure behind the referendum last time were just like misalignments and like the kind of, not storytelling, but like the planning behind it, right? Like I think there was timing that was involved. There was a lot of other variables at play. And I just want to be thoughtful about making sure we're bringing the community along with this conversation versus kind of saying this is what we're doing. If it's coming, as more of an initiative from the comp plan, which is kind of an assessment of the community, then I feel like there's a little more buy-in from that. Or I don't know if we host a separate public housing, but I just want to make sure there's kind of consensus on that level. That's my thoughts.
Ted?
Oh, yeah, I had two questions. So currently at this facility, if folks get to a point where they're no longer able to care for themselves, are they then transferred out to a different facility? Like you can't, I understand there's probably a certain threshold, right? Where if you could no longer, if you need medical around-the-clock attention, you then get transferred or go to a different facility out of town, because we don't have anything in town, right?
That's correct, Madam Chair. Folks would have to find a different facility, such as Village Green or Brentwood, are the two probably closest, or to the Cedars, or someplace that may have to provide a higher level of care, end-of-life care, or a higher level of assisted living services that currently aren't provided there, because this is more independent apartment living.
And so, and maybe Bob, I don't know if you know this or not, but what is the role for the state to help fund these types of, because if you're in an affordable housing, if you're living in affordable housing, presumably affordability is an issue for you, right? So when you no longer can get the care that you need at a facility like this, does the state take over to help pay and subsidize that?
The program they have there now, there's no state.
There's nothing for the
no
state.
state level. It's strictly a private pay.
My understanding to that, Tig, is that when Medicaid runs out, the state then takes over, right? Or what is the financial, like end-of-life planning, the financial, if you run out of resources personally, then the state takes over, right?
You go to Maine Care.
Maine Care,
Maine
that's right.
Care is, it's not a flexible option. We experienced that with my mother-in-law. She was not broke yet, but basically the assisted living facility where she was, they transported her to the hospital and said, we don't want her back. That left the hospital with the option of saying, you have to find a place. And so the way it works is you have to take the first available bed wherever it is. And
Oh, wow.
so we looked at
Not very nice.
two facilities that
Wow,
neither my wife or I felt safe in,
yeah.
and we were finally able to find her a bed in Scarborough. Again, we were still paying with my mother-in-law's finances, and thankfully she didn't run out of money. She passed before then, but I can tell you that it's like opening a drain. That's how fast the money disappears.
Okay.
Thanks.
A couple questions, Bob. So this would be an assisted living facility, correct?
I would view this as a transitional facility. I'm not sure that I would take away the apartments that are there now, but I would, if I had a clean sheet of paper and I could see how it might play out, I might have so many units that were independent living, assisted living, end of life, congregate care facility.
So the people that would service the clients, would they be Cumberland employees?
That's a discussion to have. I think that the level of discussion I'd like to keep it at tonight is there interest in finding out whether there's any interest with them about conversion of the facility.
And I guess the last question, and it goes right to the last statement you made. That place is full all the time. Why would Bateman's want to give it up?
Not sure that they would, but I think it's a great building that would convert easily.
Okay, thank you, Bob. You want to have Brian,
Sure.
Brian, step up to the podium if you would and introduce yourself and.
So I'm Brian Seitz. I'm a resident in North Yarmouth. I'm also the VP of Business Development for Volunteers of America. We have about 500 units of affordable housing that covers a span of aging adults, independent living, all the way to group homes for individuals with severe and persistent mental illness, recovery from SUD, all sorts of things, right? Homeless veterans, the list goes on and on. But we do a lot of housing. So I am totally on board with Bob's assessment that there absolutely is a need for assisted living. There absolutely is a need for memory care, for nursing homes, all of that stuff. We're an aging population here in Maine. All that stuff's really, really important. I will say it's really, really difficult too, okay? One of the things that we I just want to say too, from the outset, I'm not here representing North Yarmouth or VOA at this point. I'm just here. I opened my mouth and told Bob something, and he asked me to come explain it. So here I am.
Well, that will teach you.
Yeah, so that goes to show me, right? One of the things that we were working on at VOA prior to the COVID epidemic was we were really looking at social determinants of health and how we could de-silo some of these things that we were seeing across the healthcare and the individuals we were dealing with. And we started looking at models that would allow us to take what we have in our independent senior living facilities is this, we call them resident service coordinators, right? And those resident service coordinators are really just there to, kind of make the community gel as a unit, provide access to, fun events and get people to, appointments, but also keep an eye on them as they age and make sure they're being connected with the correct services they need to help them stay independent in their housing for as long as possible. And so we started looking at different models that would allow us to take that and expand it into the community, as opposed to just looking at, we have this one facility with X number of units, how do we cover them? Can we take this model and expand it to a community-wide model? And we started looking at different things that really kind of struck us. And this is this slide here, and I apologize for the, I don't know what happened to the fonts. But the graphic here is the thing that I really wanted to touch on. All the things you guys are talking about, the nursing home, the assisted living, all that stuff is very medical centric. 80% of what determines someone's health in the community, whether they're in a facility or they're living in their own home, is factors completely outside of their health care. So that's social isolation, that's their financial well-being, it's their physical environment. Are they hoarders, for instance? All these things, are they smokers? All these like health behaviors and whatnot impact their health too. So we started looking at a model that we thought was really interesting, and that is really just taking that resident service coordinator, we call them community resource coordinators, that would just work with fire, EMS, folks in the administrative office to identify individuals who are at risk for something. Maybe it's a heavy utilizer of EMS services. Maybe it's someone who we know they've lost a loved one, they're living alone, any sort of factor. And this person would work, as part of, we call it the firehouse model, because they literally would work out of the firehouse, because that's the most trusted group in the community, right? Go out and connect with those individuals and then wrap them with services as they need. The beauty of this model is that one, it keeps people in their homes. It keeps people safe, and it keeps them identified, and you can track them over time and kind of monitor their health and their conditions that they're living in, right? So that's great, because we want to keep people living independently as long as possible. The second thing is, you don't need a big facility. You don't need to develop a big facility. You're already dealing with people in their community where they are. So I presented this as an alternative to Bob, because this is something that if Cumberland or any community or a combination of communities wanted to get together and hire a one FTE to do this, you could literally cover 500 homes with one individual, over the course of a year, because you're not like necessarily going out and visiting every single day. Sometimes it's a phone call, sometimes it's an in-person visit. Sometimes you're sending out, third parties to go in and help them, cook, or, help them with their finances, or whatever the case may be, right? But it is a service. It's a low cost, low barrier for a community to see real results with their residents, but also potentially recognize some savings on the administrative side through fire and EMS, especially if you're working with heavy utilizers, right? Like those trips out in a as we all know, those trips out in an ambulance and the fire and taking the fire engines out for someone who just can't figure out their diabetes medication or whatever the case may be. Those are super expensive for the town to take on. So this individual is someone who can help mitigate some of those costs. And so the idea being is, over time, you kind of balance out the costs of the individual that provides these services with the cost savings on the municipal side. All right, I just said a lot. So I'm going to pause right there.
Brian, just one quick way.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Your experience that if we accept to do this, if we accept any state or federal money, then we would not be able to prioritize Cumberland residents, correct? It would be
Correct.
first come.
Yep.
And that's part of the deal that we had with the housing was we always wanted to prioritize Cumberland residents, but the minute we accept a dollar from the outside, there goes that option, and we're better off keeping let the private sector do it. But go ahead, Bill.
Can I just
Yeah,
say
sure.
something on that point? So, again, we have housing all over the state of Maine. We have one large independent senior living facility in New Hampshire as well. And I did a study because I'm developing 36 units up in Waldoboro right now, and that was one of the questions they were very concerned about. And this totally is separate of this, but I just want to address what you were saying about the residents, right? We did an analysis of all of our senior housing facilities, and what we found was that across all of our senior housing facilities, if you look at the prior address of someone who's living in those units, it was crazy. It was something 90-some% of them live within a 12-mile radius of where that facility is. So the idea that for some reason someone from Massachusetts is going to come up here and just plop down in Cumberland and that may happen, but usually that happens because there's a natural support. Like they used to live here, or they have a niece or a brother or someone who lives in the community. So there's a community connection there.
Bailey?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, so I think I'm following in that there are like two different frameworks for this. One is just hiring a person like this, and then you also provide, just trying to get a gauge on what you do, also provide housing support in that you guys own and operate your own, or what is the structure there?
Yeah. So what I'm talking about is completely independent of you guys doing
Yep.
any sort of housing.
Yep.
My recommendation to Bob was, if you want to have an impact and do something that's low barrier,
Yep.
like avoid like trying to figure out how you're going to get. First of all, you're going to have to get a certain number of units to make an assisted living work, and it's
Yeah.
somewhere 30, 40. I don't remember what the number is, but there's a number
A minimum.
that works, right? And
Okay.
anything below that, it doesn't. So you have instead of like worrying about all that, like start with things that are low barrier, and this is potentially a low barrier solution that you can start helping individuals stay in their homes now.
So do you have any, like, I'm sure I can look this up on the internet, but just off the top of your head, any other communities like locally that have something like this in place?
There's. I'm going to give you guys this this whole thing.
Yep.
Because I kind of cobbled this together from a lot of different stuff. So, you know, there's some study information that talks about like the costs and what we're trying to avoid here. I've got some, similar projects in Maine. So there's nothing that's exactly like what we're talking about here, but there are things, and you know, vet to vet, I think is something that someone local here does. They do something similar, but it's specific for vets, and it's really just about social isolation. But there are different community health workers that are self-funded through different settings, like through Maine Health. And then there's a whole bunch of, I've got some nationwide stuff that dates back, 10 years that VOA and some other organizations have been working on. So you guys are welcome to have all of this. I just kind of cobbled together a bunch of information for you to have.
Awesome, thank you.
Andrew?
Tig was first.
I just had a quick question. The coordinator, do they have, are they a medical practitioner?
No, that's a great question. So who are these people? So this is what we looked at, and again, we went out and we looked at different models that people were using, across the nation. We found this one model in, I believe it was Cincinnati, that national, I can't remember the name of their organization, but anyway, big housing provider. They had started a firehouse kind of model like this, and what they found was that you do not want these people to be medical providers. You don't want them to be nurses. You don't want them to be paramedics. You don't want them to be. You want them to be someone from the community that has that are culturally literate for what's going on in the community. That's mission driven, and they don't need to be have a heavy education. They have to be able to be someone who can go out and develop relationships. That's the key thing, is being able to develop trust with the individual. So what degrees they have do not matter at all.
I think I'm just curious because Devin does an amazing job, and so I'm also wondering what if there's any overlap with some of the work that Devin's currently doing. Devin, our coordinator, right? Just curious. I don't know, Matt, if you know if there's any overlap there, or if this is just totally different in terms of.
There are commonalities, like
Yep.
there are areas that she works with, but as far as some of the, I'd say the higher level servicing and social service entities that Brian's talking about, it's not something that we're staffed for at the present time.
And I think what makes this successful too for organizations that run programs like this is that, when I was building this model out for Maine, one of the advantages you have with, and I'm not pushing VOA, I'm just kind of giving you an example. In order for this to be successful, it can't just be this person. And they need to have a back end. You need to have some administrative support. And part of that administrative support is some LCSWs or some other individuals that these guys who are not trained, and they're not trained nurses or LCSWs, but be able to have resources in your organization that can support them for these residents' needs.
So, I think just two questions. One, it sounds like this is still a concept, but it hasn't been rolled out yet anywhere else. In Maine,
We haven't done it. We
Okay.
haven't done it. To be quite frank, after COVID, and we came out of COVID, there was a ton of housing money that was coming down the pike. So we kind of shifted focus away from these types of services. We still provide social services, but we were more focused on developing a housing pipeline to take advantage of that. So this kind of got put on the back burner. But we were working with South Portland and some other entities to do this very thing. It's just everyone just kind of shifted after COVID.
and then sort of the second question, which based on the first, you probably don't have an exact answer on this, but roughly what would be looking at, cost wise. But then there's also somewhere in there you have grants for these
Yep.
other different ones.
I
And
got
sort of what is
this.
that?
So again, super rough, back of the envelope. I just updated 5-year-old budgets. So I don't know how accurate this is, but I was telling Bob, when we were having coffee the other day, I was like, I think it'll cost you about $100,000. And it's, running through the things that you're going to have, if you run this program through a third party administrator like a VOA, there'll be some administrative overhead. You got the wages and administrative support. Travel's a big thing. I mean, we live in a rural area, so this individual is going to be in their car a lot, so you have to have a lot of travel built into it. and just miscellaneous program costs. Like you have to have some sort of system to track and monitor individuals over time. So Ask Online or one of these kind of like low end electronic, not really an electronic medical record type thing, but something to keep track of individuals over time. So there's that, and then there are some funding support. So we had identified, and I actually. Cumberland County CDBG, which, Cumberland and North Yarmouth and Gray and all, everyone in Cumberland County except for like Portland, South Portland are part of. There are funds annually that they give out for programs. It's usually fairly limited and it's fairly competitive, and you have to have a 20% match, but you can go after those. And there's tons of foundations, Maine Health Access, John T. Gorman, TD Charitable. I mean, as long as you're monitoring, you have to know how to go after those and know what they're focused on. But there's tons of foundations. These are just 3 examples.
Denise?
Yeah, I have a question about the role of the community resource coordinator. Is it typically someone who's specialized in a particular thing, like seniors versus homeless vets versus like behavioral health, or is it just like one individual that serves the needs of whoever needs them in the
It's
community?
one individual who knows the community, not necessarily knows all the individuals in the community, but kind of knows like the culture and the history of the community and can support those. So, again, their education's not really relevant because they're really just building relationships and building bridges between the individuals and the service providers on the outside that you may need to bring in.
Okay, cool. Because we are talking about this in like Bob's scenario of the senior housing component, but for this in particular, having somebody who could do not just that, but serve everybody in the community.
Yeah.
With whatever they need would be useful. So thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, and I think, and Bob's right. I mean, there was a lot of conversation earlier about, if we take this money, who's going to be served, and like with this model, you could serve anyone in your community regardless of like what their income level is. Just really kind of whatever parameters you put on it.
A couple of thoughts, and this might be more directed to the council, but I look at this like we have a school resource officer, not the same thing, but just thinking from like an alignment perspective, it's like a community resource officer, right? And I would view this as like expanding Devon's team, right? Because I think Devon has the like community capital that's really targeted towards this audience, and her buy-in would really be necessary for whoever this person is, because they really are communicating with the same demographic of people that we're looking to target probably. I think this is a great idea. I don't know if it's in this fiscal year, but I think it's something that we should definitely be thinking about down the pipe.
On the funding side of this might be more for you, Matt. If this person were working with X number of people that would qualify as, needing or qualifying for affordable housing, would any of the TIF 1 funding be open to like funding this position where we're not building housing, we're not doing any of that, but it's,
Supporting.
is that getting too cute or?
No, I don't think so, Councilor Magoon. I think you could I'd have to read it a little bit more closely, but I know that is one of the mechanisms we use to provide funding for part of our firefighters and EMTs. So,
Same thing.
I look at it as a comparable vein there. And then I really like the concept of, looking at the CDBG grants. I've sat on that board for years, just reviewing different approaches that other towns have put forward. And I think that, they're in the beginning of that now, reviewing the proposals that are coming to them, but it'd be something that, as Councilor Douglas said, if we're not looking at it this fiscal year, but something to look at for a plan in the future, that as an option as well for funding. And then the other one that comes to mind, and to Councilor Vale's common theme, working with another community or two to try to see if that's something we could collaborate on, because you may not have enough of a caseload in one town, but by 2 or 3 towns together, you could look at enough to have a caseload there that we could share a position on that too, and have, or we could or we could host it in, under the Cumberland umbrella, and then, like we do with the ACO and Harbor Master and things along those lines. So,
So, are there any more questions?
Well, sort of on that note, this might be more of a question for you on sort of like if VOA was going to come in and assist, how would you sort of determine that, all right, Cumberland has X number of people, we really need, that times 4 to make it worth it to have, to pay one person to come in and like give them a full caseload so they've got enough to do, or, all right, well, these 2 towns have enough, but if you add this third, you really need 1.5 people. Like,
Yeah.
what's sort of the process there for figuring that out?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. Like I said, we've seen in Cincinnati, for example, the program that we saw, that was these individuals it was one person. They were in the firehouse 40 hours a week, right? They were seeing upwards of almost 500 people, like on their roster, right? Again, densely packed community, right? So it's really easy to be able to reach physically out to those individuals. So I honestly don't know the answer to that question. Once you start spreading people out like this, I think that, I think you would need 2 towns at least, at a minimum, to cover one FTE. I might know of a town, just saying, that might be interested. When I actually went after CDBG funds before for an earlier iteration of this, we were looking at doing as a study, a 2-year study. Gray and New Gloucester both jumped on board with it. We didn't get it because it was a 2-year study and that just didn't fit the funding model that year.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, another thought about that would be similar to what the way the county provides general assistance now as well. I could see that as a natural extension of that as an opportunity, and the county's always looking for opportunities there to do that, and they've got let's just say probably an interested group with the towns that they currently provide GA for, but they don't provide that level of service, and they also have the health department that they have at the county, so that might be something worth having a conversation with County Manager Yaley about as well. For future opportunities.
Okay, thank you, Brian, for everything. We really appreciate it. In the interest of time, because I want to get to Bob's the second part of this, it looks to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, there's actually 2 different questions here. Do we have an interest in approaching the Bateman about getting into, see if they want to turn over some of their, or all of their facility for assisted living? And the second question would be, if not that, would we be interested in having this community coordinator and having Matt get all the information, let us know what our options are, and who our partners in that might be? Is that fair that we can, Bob? So, what is the general consensus of the council in having Matt approach the Bateman about taking over part or all of their facilities? Is there any interest in it?
Yeah, I can give you where my head is, Mike and Bob. Obviously, looking at a piece of real estate, whether we're in a lease, whatever, is a big endeavor. And it doesn't come without a cost to the citizens. And I feel like the real estate's like the icing on the cake. We got to figure out a business model of how we're going to run it. And is it town employees? Is it a independent contractor? So I think that information is just as important as contacting Bateman. In terms of running the numbers, I don't think we can make an intelligent decision until we've actually run the numbers and talked to Bateman and figured out how we're going to run all this. But, I think something of this magnitude, I think if let's just say all the numbers check out and we can make a deal with Bateman, I think that's something we really need to put in front of the voters. And the reason I say that is, from talking to a bunch of residents over the past month or so, and I kind of feel the same way. I don't feel like I have a good handle on what this town's major economic expenditures are coming up in the next 3 to 10 years. And I feel like the citizens deserve that information when we go to make big decisions like this. So, I mean, I'm on board with running numbers, but I feel like we got to do some homework in the town's operations. With, you know, we talked about the library's capital needs, and that's why I've kind of pushed for this capital improvement workshop the next meeting. We need to map that stuff out so the citizens have the knowledge. I think it's great to run the numbers because we can't make a decision, but that's where my head is to start with.
Denise?
I'm totally good with the second portion where we're talking about, you know, having a separate coordinator and potentially expanding Devin's team to provide services to those who need it without significant overhead. Totally okay with talking about that. As far as I'm basically have the same feeling as Jeff. It's like, this is a very rough draft, not like a lot of solid numbers, which we won't have those until we reach out, you know. But if there's at least like a ballpark where we're talking about potentially buying out a lease, as I understand it, like that comes with costs as well. There's a lot of unknowns. So it's like, do the exercise, sure, unless the exercise is going to cost us as well. So I'm ambivalent on it, really.
Okay, thank you, Denise.
I certainly am supportive of both ideas. None of us are going to go spend any money, but until we start the conversation, we really don't have a way to analyze anything. So I think the issue is this an important enough issue? Is there a need for this in the community, which I believe there is, and nothing ventured, nothing gained. I think we've hired a good town manager who will know how to phrase it, parse it, whatever, to have the conversation and come back with us and say they've got no interest. They're happy doing what they're doing, or they may come back and say, you know, we're looking at that population we have here, and they are aging in place, and we know that their finances are limited because that's why they're there. It's not because they're wealthy and can go across the street to Ocean View, where there is a program in place for them. So I think, you know, to have that conversation is critical, because at some point we will sit down and we'll have that financial discussion to Jeff and Denise's point is. So I'm all on board with both of them. And thank you, Brian.
My answers are real quick. I have no interest in approaching the Batemans about, I don't want to be in the rental business. I don't want to be in the health, assisted living business, but I am interested in the community coordinator. Bailey?
I'm definitely interested in the community coordinator. I'm not opposed to getting the information, but I think similar to Mike, it would be a hard sell for me. That feels like a lot of liability to incur, and I would need to understand like the financial landscape, not just for today, but for the future, because yeah, that's where I'm at.
Andrew?
I think I'm probably pretty close to Bailey on, you know, the community coordinator. I think that sounds like a great way to leverage resources without too much of a financial investment, get a lot out of it. I'm leery of the town being in the business of running a medical facility. And sort of to Bailey's comment, I'd need to see a lot more information, like how it would actually work, how the numbers would work, you know, just the idea of buying out a 99-year lease that has, another 80 years on it, 90 years on it, kind of thing. That seems like just buying it out would be a big number. And then for better or worse, healthcare is, as noted, you know, really expensive, and where we get the funds for, I really need to have a solid, you know, roadmap laid out of where we could get the funds to pay for all of that that's not going to just do what healthcare is doing to, you know, the national budget of just taking over more and more and more and growing and all. I don't want us to become a healthcare facility that happens to, you know, provide EMS and all.
Can I say one more thing real
Sure
quick?
you can.
Not really relevant to this conversation, but I think it is sort of relevant. The community coordinator thing, I almost look at it as like phase 1 and phase 2 could potentially be that, if that makes sense. But it's also could be used as a tool for information gathering. You know, I think Bob, you have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts. I think we have to work in this world of data, and unfortunately, that's just how it has to be a variable in decision making. And I think this person could play a large factor in that role and help kind of drive how that goes. So just one thought.
Ted?
I agree with Bailey on that. I think the position's a great idea. I would love to learn more. I'd also, oh my God, sorry guys. I think they might not even want to sell. We may as well pick up the phone and just find out where they stand, if it's even an option, right? Yeah, I think it's worth making a phone call and then getting some information and coming back and discussing, and going from there. Sorry.
In the community coordinator, you would have
I think it's a
interest-
great idea to explore as well, but I am also I'm very much looking forward to our CIP workshops where we're going to get a really good understanding of what our priorities are going to be in the next 3 to 10 years, and then we can kind of begin to put the pieces together, right? But I'm all for continuing and getting the information on both of these topics.
Okay. We have 15 minutes left for your second thing, Bob. And Matt, so I think the general consensus is yes on getting information on the community coordinator, and I don't see majority going over.
Okay.
But go ahead, Bob.
We can do it.
Sorry to rush your time, we just got 15 left.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's tough. All right, so the second option item is I'm going to use the word workforce housing facility down on Stiles Way. And it is, it's really what you're all looking for. It's a financial analysis of a proposed 80 units of workforce housing. And what it encapsulates is a reconstitution of the housing committee, either the existing members or I think we would offer that to them, and then look for people with some other areas of expertise in the construction back end of it. And so the analysis and again, this is a town-owned facility, so that it benefits the members of the community. It would not be privately owned. The intention is to find out if there is capacity for 80 units to be built. You all know about a mortgage. You know that first year is the toughest year to pay. As we pay it down, we get raises. Our economic conditions becomes a little bit better, and then at some point we own it. And so the idea is that we have a couple different funding models. A bond, some TIF money, and revenues that would be generated by the rental itself. So this is strictly a financial analysis to see if this is a viable model. I believe that it is. I hope I'm not proved wrong, but I think that with the proper construction techniques, the capitalization of the town being its own general contractor, the ability to break it down into segments of one building at a time as a build-out, we might be able to get the first unit up and running and generating a revenue, and then the other ones would fall into place. I'm not looking at a 10-year build-out, but I am looking at a phased build-out. And so my ask is to have a committee, finding a housing committee, look at this, go into some detail, and report back to the council that there is a viable option to move forward. And at that point, the council would decide whether it was to move forward with a project or not.
If I can start the conversation, then we'll go down the line. Bob, I have to give you kudos for persistency. You know, after the referendum, you came back 3 months. It took you to start to this. First, I can't disrespect the 70% of voters that said no to the last housing project. That being said, Bob, I can't think of a worse location in the world than down here for a couple of reasons. We just had the group, we met with the school board in North Yarmouth, and the school says, we gotta start land banking. We gotta look down in case, you know, when you and I grew up in this town, it was 2,500 people. Now we're over 8,000. 15 years from now, we could be 16, 17. We might need room for another school. So I don't want to burn that land on that. Second, it took us a long time, as you know, Bob, to find a place to put the salt shed to begin with. It was meeting after meeting after meeting. We finally found a place. The thought that Matt and his crew can't plow the Mabel I. Wilson School without getting 15 complaints of backup horns in the morning. If you're gonna put housing down to a mulch facility, a brush dump where they're running a tractor, a bucket truck, all day long with that beeping, next to a railroad track, next to a mulch where there's piles and piles of horse manure, and we're mixing with all that mulch, and I can just, like I said, I can't think of a worse place to put that, Bob. So, for me, I don't have interest in it. And questions for Bob or positions where you guys are at?
Sure,
Denise?
unless you want to go down the line again.
Well, if you can go first.
Okay. I appreciate your comment about land banking because I was not here, but I watched the meeting, and indeed, being able to have a space for expansion in the future is important, and we don't have that many options currently. This is to set up a committee to go into the viability of it. I would need to understand if the plan is to use TIF funds for that. You know, like, yes, 75% of our TIF 1 needs to go to housing. However, just like making housing for the sake of spending it, which I don't necessarily think that's what this is, but keep bringing up the notion of using TIF funds for things, and that's great, but yes, 75% needs to be used for housing, but I don't think that just building housing to spend it is wise, especially since we can throttle and put things into the general fund. It's 75% of what we capture. So I don't want to view just this pile of stuff that we're just gonna like build our own housing, maintain our own housing, determine who's gonna live in it. If something went on Styles Way that was housing, I would advocate for it to be mixed use. There would be services on site for people. Perhaps we're thinking about like sticking in urgent care somewhere, or just because it's kind of in the middle of nowhere in town. There's nothing around. Like if you're going to develop out that area, I think it should be like its own miniature community and have things there for people to do, especially if you're living next to the brush dump. And if we're also going to be potentially expanding household composting, you can add a whole other heap of smells to that area, and more volume of things that we'll be processing. We have the orchard there as well, which is great. Seems weirdly suited for housing and potentially commercial and mixing other things into that one area. I understand we own the land, but I'm not sure it makes sense there. I guess that's why you would form a committee to go into it, but it's like, does it have water and sewer? Would we be running it down? How much would it cost? Are we using those funds there instead of where we should to improve water in the west side? It's like, lots and lots of questions, and I don't necessarily know whether we need to form a committee to go into all of that unless we're all, a majority on board. I think like, yeah, do the exercise, but doing the exercise also takes a lot of time and a lot of town staff support on something like that. So I'm not against it, but I'm also not like ultra excited about it either. Sorry, that's not much help.
Jeff?
I'm gonna make a statement, and I'm probably gonna share more than I probably need to, but, I just wanna give you a little background on myself. In 2012, I went through a divorce. I basically had to start my life over. I came back to Cumberland, I bought a house on Bud's Trail. It was an affordable housing project at the time. I didn't have to buy a house there, but it was the best deal going. In fact, 5 hours after I gave my deposit, the offer that expired the day before, they called and wanted to take my offer. And that would have ended up on Greeley Road had that happened 5 hours earlier. So, I just want to share where I'm at because basically I live in one of those properties. And I just took advantage of it at the time. So, but, here's my concern is we're kind of in a midst. We got LD 1829. Like, what's that going to do to solve all our housing problems? We haven't even vetted that out. I'm worried about our current taxpayers. There's probably families out here that came here, for the schools and the education that MSAD 51 provides. And I look at those families as there's probably a child out there that, is getting a great education, and they probably wouldn't get it anywhere but here. And, I'll be honest with you folks, writing was never my strong point. I hate to write. Really, honestly, it's not my favorite thing to do. But, when I got to college, I was doing really well because of the education I had here. And I consider myself pretty successful in life. I'm not the best in the world, but I do all right. And I owe that to this community, and I owe it to that school system up there. So, I just feel like, Bob, we got so much stuff going on right now that maybe this isn't the year. I kind of agree with the others. The property isn't ideal, but, I don't want to put a bunch of work on town staff. But at the same token, if there's some volunteers and there's a group of volunteers that want to run some numbers and get stuff together, I will support that. But I do question the location of the property. Just like before, I think if we're going to try to move forward on anything like this, it should be before a vote. But that's where my head is. So.
Bailey?
I think I wouldn't be opposed to exploring this, but I would like some finality from the comp plan. I think I just feel like we need to follow that process through, and similar to what I said earlier, I think we need to have some community buy-in to proceed with this. I think, I foster my own personal opinions about it, but I'm trying to be cognizant, I think similar to Denise and Jeff, about just the kind of financial landscape we're in the next few years and what this would mean for us, and if this is where we should be pushing our funding, or not funding, but resources. So,
Andrew?
I like, in general, the idea of going back to the housing committee or their suggestions and their work, and digging into that, realizing that the landscape's completely shifted with 1829 since they did their work. In terms of that specific location, I wasn't on the inside, and so I don't know all the reasons, but from my understanding, it wasn't even sort of an option for a school just because of other restrictions on if you're gonna have a school, it has to be, there's certain parameters and whatnot. The rail line running right by and all. So I'm not sure that would be someplace that we would need to think about land banking for a future school or not. I'd want more info on that. But I sort of think the 1829 throws a lot of wrenches into to everything, and just sort of the unknown of what that is going to be. If we did something like this, I think that we could sort of go the route of somebody presented a while ago about sort of, they make affordable housing not based on any like deed or covenant, but based on the way that the units are built. It sort of makes them affordable. I would like to go, if we did look at more of that route, and all. I don't know if that really helps of sort of one way or the other if I just said a bunch of words but didn't actually really say anything. So
Yeah, you're really good. Madam Chair,
I like the idea of really. I think we're going to learn more in January from the legislature on any tweaks that might be done with 1829. I agree, 1829 is bonkers with what the landscape is going to look like, and I think we've all talked a lot about how we don't want to see more and more McMansions in the town of Cumberland, right? So if we want housing and we want something affordable, like, I want to know what that's going to look like. And so I just wonder, I am totally fine if we have I would support a volunteer group looking in, getting information, doing a financial analysis. I would think maybe if it was okay with you, Bob, and if the council kind of felt like it, we could expand their scope a little bit too, and maybe give a couple other tasks that we might want them to look into. I still want to look into deed restrictions, if there are things that we could do there. So I thumbs up to doing the analysis if we have a group of volunteers, but there are a couple other items that I would love to tack onto their list to look into as it relates to affordable housing. And I agree that we should also try to pull in as many results as from the comp plan as we can as possible. Sorry, did that all make sense? Mm-hmm. Thank you.
okay. Bob, please.
So I think there's a little bit more chance here. There might be 4 votes. I think it's perfectly reasonable to ask Matt to come back and flush that out, what the questions might be that would be asked. I think that the point that I would like to make here is that I'm not asking for the taxpayers to take this on their chin. I'm asking us to explore the idea that this can be self-funded, not necessarily self-managed by the town of Cumberland. We have talked about expansion of the Cumberland Housing Authority, and I still think that's a good road to go. But the idea is that, is this a viable project that can be self-funded, self-generating, provide the workforce housing that the community lacks? I said this at the comp plan the other night. I am in favor of no more houses being built in the town of Cumberland. We got plenty of houses. I am in favor of making certain sacrifices for affordable housing because that's a real need. We won't find a property that we own. We'd have to buy something someplace else. We won't find a property with water and sewer, close proximity. Certainly there's any number of reasons not to build there. It's close to the train. I like Denise's idea that it could be mixed use. And in fact, my original proposal that we sat down and had a sketch plan drawn up showed some child care facility, a coffee shop, some of that amenities that we'd all like to see. So, I'm not opposed to looking at how that plays out, but I think the concept of exploring an idea for workforce housing in the town of Cumberland is an admirable goal, because we know, and we've just had a property that came under contract here on Main Street where they're going to tear down a historic home, and they're going to proposal is to put 11 units of housing on it. So the pressure is going to be here by developers, by real estate agents, by people who have property that they can see that they can maximize their return on. And that's not going to bring affordable housing. That's not going to bring workforce housing to the community. And so I believe if we really want to provide for our own, then we have to take that initial step and say, all right, we're going to make that first step, and we're going to see what that looks like.
So, we're gonna start the meeting here shortly. I guess the will of the council, Obviously, I'm a hard no. Jeff, you're a maybe no, a maybe yes.
I'm good with research and analysis, but I mean, I want to have, another shot at what the next step is from there. Just because of what I said before on, Drown Road. I don't think we know the town's financial picture for major extended expenditures for the next 3 to 10 years. And I think we need to know that as a council. So if there's a group of individuals that want to help Bob run some numbers and put a model together and get us the facts and figures and everything, I'm fine with that. I'm going to want to look at it all and, try to put holes in it, so to say, but I'm good with it.
Denise, as the Romans did, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Just kidding. Yeah, I'm with Jeff. I'm fine going forward and getting information. I really need to specifically understand how this would be self-funded, what exactly that means, where this funding is coming from, and how this would not cost anyone anything.
All right, I know where you, Bob. Yeah, where I am. Billy?
I want the comp plan to be done. I don't feel like it's fair to run down a rabbit hole on this. I just am weary after the last referendum. And I think, Denise, I don't know if this is where Bob's head's at, but I think the funding would more so be, we would just be leveraging our existing assets and then be paying ourselves back. A similar model to some other discussions we've had recently. But again, to Jeff's point, we need a full picture. Can we have more of a conversation about this once after the new year, once we see the capital plan and I just feel like I don't want to give marching orders and then you to come back with numbers and have not wasted time, because I don't think it's a waste of time, but then I don't want someone to be like, well, who was your source and who came up with the analysis? I'd rather go about this the right way, and not the right way, but make sure that there's some legitimacy to how we're going about this before we get too far down the road. So I would propose reassessing this conversation at the beginning of the new year, or what's the timing on comp plan?
First draft to planning board in April.
I'm okay having a conversation about it after the new year. I think we need to really all understand long-term capital plans, so.
Andrew?
I like Bailey's idea. I'm also sort of on the Jeff and Denise side of things of, I'm fine with getting information at all before we, and I think this is all Bob is saying is get information before we're going further down the pike at all, but I don't want to gather information then have to regather information because comp plan has said we're going this way when we thought we were going that way.
Madam Chair?
I'm in the camp with Denise and Jeff. I love research. I love analysis. I love to have information. I want to understand the long-term capital, and also, with Bailey, in terms of seeing the results of not only the comp plan, but also 1829 once the legislature reconvenes. So I am into more information sharing or information gathering. Thumbs up for me.
I think, I've heard you guys talk about 1829. The second session should be over by April. The comp plan, the same. If it's the will of the council to revisit this in spring. Bob?
Is it gonna run into budget season too much?
Well,
Talking about April, getting into May, or
That'd be after.
I don't
think that
remember
the-
anything that happens.
The town manager and I can sit down and perhaps flush out a little bit more detail of what I think it would look like and what he would, how that charge would be. I will say that, time waits for no man. We're not waiting for a comp plan. We're not waiting for dictates from the state, 1829 or whatever, however that plays out. You know, I think the onus is on the council at some point to make a decision to do things, and whether it's paving a road, putting sidewalks down, building a new school, affordable housing. You know, there's nothing wrong with us making a decision, moving forward with it, and seeing how it plays out. So,
I'm fine with that, Bob. I just think I agree that the council was elected to be able to make decisions, but I also feel like we need to gather information and make strategic decisions, right? Like make well thought out, sound decisions, whether that's kind of bringing in those checks and balances to get there. And yes, I don't want to wait forever, but I also don't want to, I just think like sometimes when you move things too quickly and there is not like kind of the will of the community, which is how I look at the comp plan, the things that you pull together feel self-fulfilling versus community-driven. And I really want us to be focused on, you know, meeting the needs of the community, which have been very much like, what's the long-term plan? What are the long-term financial impacts? And making sure we're meeting those needs before we're pressing forward with another kind of item that, yes, it may not impact people financially, but it will in some way, right? Like there's more students in the community, or there's more people using resources. So I just think we need to make sure that if we do something like this, we're moving about it in a kind of collective community way versus us just saying, well, this is what we want to do, and then having to backtrack. That's all. That's my thought on that.
I respect that.
Yeah.
That's
If we're ready, I'll close this workshop, and we'll move into the regular council meeting. Guys,
Right.
Bye-bye. Bye, guys.
all set?
I'm going to bid you all farewell.
Feel better, Tig. Monday, November 10th, 2025, council meeting. We had a workshop, started at 6 o'clock, had to do with housing concepts and assisted living concepts. The first item is the approval of the October 27th meetings.
Motion.
We have a motion?
I'll give you a second.
Second. All those in favor? Before we go into the manager's report, I'd like just take a second. Tomorrow is Veterans Day. I'm extremely proud that us up here on the dais served with two veterans, Denise and Bob. I want to thank both of you for your service. I look back in the room, I see Bob Maloney, I see Moriarty, both veterans. Thank you. And, you know, we all got relatives that have served. My son just got out. I couldn't be more proud of what you guys have done for your country and the service you have provided. So, thank you. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to assure everybody that you and I did not collude on what I'm about to say next as well. Specific to our Veterans Day. Tomorrow is Veterans Day, and it was established as a day set aside to thank and honor all veterans who served honorably in the military, in wartime or peacetime. In fact, Veterans Day is largely intended to thank our living veterans for their service, to acknowledge that their contributions to our national security are appreciated, and to underscore the fact that all those who served, not only those who died, have sacrificed and done their duty. We want to thank our veterans for their service and sacrifice to our nation. I'm sorry I couldn't say it as well as you did, Chairman Eads. But it's an important. I had multiple family members. My father-in-law is a Marine from Vietnam era as well, and it's a special sacrifice. So thank you all for your service. It's a great honor to know you. Last Wednesday evening, Councilor Mahalik, myself, Councilor Vale and many of our department heads attended a community conversation at the West Side Community Center, and it was well attended and a great opportunity for community outreach. At that discussion, we followed up on some recent questions relating to what a source of noise and vibration is on the west side. And I talked about it there, but I also wanted to talk about it as well this evening, just for those who weren't there. We know the source of the vibration is not blasting, as none has taken place at Mineral Springs. The construction has been using a vibratory roller to compact soils, and that is the source of the vibration. Bill Longley, our code enforcement officer, met with Dave Chase last Wednesday on site to discuss it. And then as of today, 24 permits for new homes have been issued, and the 24th foundation was poured last week. And we anticipate the use of the roller will also cease as we enter into the winter months. Here's an update on some of our upcoming projects on impacting town. Bids for the Route 100 safety improvements project to lower the road surface by J Brothers to improve safety and visibility were opened last Thursday. I'm happy to report that the project is, that we received, 9 bids in there, 3 of which were extremely competitive and under budget. So we are, our folks, at least 3 of them were below budget, and that also included the primary and both alt ads that we had in there. So we're looking to have the entirety of that done, which would include lowering, going northbound from J Brothers, the road surface, and lowering, going southbound after Methodist Road, the road surface there, which are both, we had an accident as recently as last Friday night, and it was not a, there's no such thing as a good accident, but it was not a good accident. So we're looking to help that improve over the coming year. We're looking to have, to award the project shortly. Doug Reynolds, our engineer on the project, is qualifying the bids to make sure everything nothing was missed and everything was included, which is a normal operations on that. And we're looking to anticipate construction to take place in '26. So that's great. We're overjoyed about that, as well as thankful for the state for granting us funding from their municipal partnership initiative in the amount of $600,000 to help offset the cost of the project. Rotary work continues. A number of residents have received letters from the MDOT regarding some survey work that will be taking place along Route 100. So that generated some questions, but the state is working to move that forward. At some point, we're looking at 2026 for construction, and this will be a state-managed project. So again, last night there was once again a very, very bad accident at the intersection of Blanchard, Skillings, and Route 100, and we're hoping that that will also improve the safety at that intersection, because there are far too many accidents that take place there. Both solar projects continue. We're looking at solar panels to be installed on the West Side Fire Station. Those panels have been ordered, and this is part of the community action grant that the town received. So there are no funds that are expended by the town for that project, but it was part of a multi-project grant that the town received. Work for the expansion of the solar field on Drown Road is continuing. The revision working on the technical details for connection with CMP. So we've been setting back and forth paperwork and making sure that that's all lined up. And the materials have been placed on order for the project, which allows us to maximize the benefit of the tax credits as they currently exist within the calendar year. So that's moving forward. Central Maine Power has contacted property abutters to their transmission lines in Cumberland on the west side, or sorry, on the more the fore side and the center, regarding as part of their request of public convenience and necessity for upgrades to their system. The town has contacted CMP to express our willingness to provide space for them to in the council chambers here, so they may have a public meeting to discuss the details of their project and their plans. The town now has a copy of their submission provided to the PUC. We're working on getting that posted on our website, so people, many folks had a lot of questions, and they'll have, it is a huge document. So be prepared or have a second cup of coffee ready.
I'm ready.
To read. I know it
Ready.
impacts Councilor Thorston's property. She was one of who received it, as well as former Councilor Story King. So as we get more information on that, we'll have it posted on our website and any future meetings that they have. I know Whitney's been working with Jay Chase to try to schedule that. So we're working on that side of it as well, to help get the answers that they'd like to have. Speaking of the town's website, people may have noticed that there is a new face on our website. Whitney Hankin has worked with Civic Plus, our website provider, to update and refresh the town's website. As with any new type of project, we will continue to test the site and create new content. And we hope, but the new site should be more quickly navigable, easier to use for people, and we hope an even more useful resource. And I want to thank Whitney for her work on that project. She's done a lot. It's been a long 6 to 9 months with that, maybe even longer. The ClearGov Financial Transparency Project will be live on the town's website this week. And I think you'll find that fascinating. I know, the project really is trying to air out and push everything that we have financially out so the public can see it, as well as council members, but so folks can take a look at that and know that there's bright daylight being shined on everything we do fiscally here. This is a project undertaken by our great finance director, Helene DiBartolomeo, and the software puts our financial information on items such as expenditures, revenues, and demographic information out there. Users can break revenues and expenses per capita, or down by per capita, and by department or cost center. And a person can also put in their own tax amount for their property and see exactly how their property tax bill contributes to the operations of government. So if you want to see how much, if your property tax bill is, say, $4,000, you can see how much of that goes to fund recreation or funding police department or funding the schools. So it all breaks that down, and it makes it easy, and it's nice big fonts, and it's easy to comprehend. We are also looking forward to this because it's going to be a heck of a great tool for us to use during the upcoming budget season, and will improve our financial reporting. So it's going to be a great tool, and I think the public is going to be very well served by being able to see that information and what we do. And that is all I have this evening, Mr. Chairman. Respectfully submitted.
Denise?
Couple more questions on the CMP thing.
Sure.
If you could just, in your better words than mine, explain the process for people who are confused by the very vague documents they received on the process of intervening, where there's like a footnote with like a very specific hyperlink where they ask you to go register, make an account, and then file for intervener status. That is supposed to be done by this Friday. And I remember in a meeting we had with Alyssa, she had mentioned that they could reach out to some sort of like public or like some advocate or something. Just if you could summarize basically for people what they need to do before this Friday and how they can go about doing it.
Sure. I think
If you
people can work out to the public advocate that is on the Public Utilities Commission.
Okay.
I believe it's, if I'm correct, I think it may still be Bill Harwood, who replaced, Barry Hobbins, who was there for forever. But Bill Harwood is there now. But I would encourage people, if they do have questions, to reach out to the public advocate for sure on that. Just because it is, reading the documents, it's vague.
Super
or-
vague. It
so-
talks about like property acquisition, that opens a lot of questions, as well as knowing someone's rights as far as allowing or not allowing CMP to expand an easement, like that's attached to your deed, like things like this. So
Yeah, Bill Longley had a couple of questions today from folks who, while we were open today, a person wondered if they could take their house. Because the last time they did a major expansion, they bought, I think, 3 different houses. Four over during that project. So there's concerns there, and just not having enough information out there
Right.
is enough to make it concerning. So that's why we're trying to push everything that we have now out there, but we'll probably have it up on Wednesday on the website. So, but I would encourage people to reach out to the public advocate, and I think trading emails back and forth with Shirley if people do have it. She did a great job filing for her intervener status. I know she reached out to a lot of other folks that she knew email addresses for, and provided a good template for people to do it. And it's just a question of making sure that they, want to protect the rights, or making sure they're involved in the process.
cool. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next is public discussion. Public discussion is for comments on items that are not on the agenda. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Rebuttal comments will be limited to 2 minutes. Public discussion topics may be brought up again under new business for council discussion. Is there anybody here from the public that would like to speak? Bob, come on up. Introduce yourself to the to everybody. And
I don't know how to run this.
just speak
this
into it,
working?
Bob.
Okay, I'm Robert Maloney, 18 Maloney's Ridgeway, Cumberland. I've got two little things I would like to talk about. We have the Twin Brook, and we have Valhalla that you hear about all the time. Right up here is a recreational area that from spring until fall, late fall, is extremely busy and extremely well-liked. And I would like the council, future and whatever, to keep it in mind. It's a very limited space compared to the others, but it's being used very hard and very good. Everybody seems to be happy with it, and I hope future councils and other town facilities will keep their eye on it and improve it as much as they possibly can. My second thing is a bouquet of orchids to the town, the Public Works Commission, not committee, the Public Works Department, and probably Mr. Bolick for putting a top on the salt and sand place out back of the fire barn and the recreational building out there. I've always thought it was less than intelligent to put 6 or 8 yards of salt and sand and leave it out to the 2 feet of snow, ice, and everything else. And people, and I have been up there, you'd have to shovel 2 feet of snow off the pile before you could even get into the damn pile. And they have done a beautiful job. It's not done, as far as I know, of putting a roof over it. And I don't know who it went through and who initiated it originally, but it's something that should have been done 5 years ago, and finally it's being done. And it looks, what little I've seen of it, it looks excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anybody else from the public? Go ahead, Terry.
Terry Maloney Kelly, West Cumberland. I want to thank all of the staff and those of you that were at West Cumberland last week. It was a great, of course, I loved it because it's my hood, and I got to see some folks I haven't seen in a long time. And thank you, Councilor Mihalik, because you've really, I mean, not only that event, but you've been extremely responsive to me and the inquiries of folks in West Cumberland over questions and safety concerns, and I greatly appreciate your quick response, even though you can't always, and I don't expect you to always solve the problem for us. But it's great to have you out there. I really came down tonight so that I could thank all of you for your service, and especially all of you who are veterans. I wanted to be able to look you in the eye and say thank you for your service. For everyone else who's here and who might be listening or watching at home. We're going through difficult times in our country, and I need to thank you for that opportunity, as difficult as it is for all of us. If you had not done your service to keep us free and safe and have the ability to have conflict and resolution, none of us would be here. So thank you very much for your service, all of you in the military, past, present, and future.
Wonderful. Thank you, Terry. Good evening.
Hi, how are you guys? My name's Adam Cartman, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I lived in Cumberland for the last 4 years with my wife Jackie and our 2 kids who are both in the school. I'm here tonight as a resident of Vining Way, which to my understanding is going to be up for town approval at the next meeting, if all goes as planned, but I'm going to be out of town that week, so I figured I would come early and just discuss my thoughts. After speaking with Tig, we just thought it would be best if I just came in person and just gave you my opinion. I first want to start by thanking Matt Sturgis. We've been working together for forever since he started. And I'm sure he's secretly hoping that this is the last time he's going to see me. From the beginning, it was our expectation, along with the other homeowners of our street, that Vining Way would become a town road once the majority of the homes were complete. That was a key selling feature of our subdivision, and it's what appealed to families like mine. Our home was one of the last to be completed, and we've lived on Vining Way for about 3 years now. The process of town approval has been going on for at least 3 years, beginning with Bill Shane, and now we're finally at a point where I think we're pretty close to transfer, if not ready. We initially thought the road was going to come before you about 3 years ago, but delays totally out of homeowner control and solely on the developer side caused this delay. The good news is that our road now meets all town standards. There's an active performance bond in place, and from my understanding and from Matt's review, it's acceptable to the town. We've watched numerous roads come before the council, and we wanted to proactively address some concerns. First, the HOA has voted in favor of town acceptance, which is a small miracle in itself. And from my understanding, all 20 homeowners were unanimous in seeking approval. The other thing we wanted to just correct is I sent an email earlier today. I mistakenly put 18 lots. We actually have 20 lots, and our combined tax burden for the year was $444,000 just from our neighborhood. We're not asking for anything special, just the same town services with maintenance that comes along with being a part of Cumberland, consistent with the original intent of the subdivision and with prior council decisions on similar roads such as Cortland Court. I'm here to address any questions you might have, but we're just here to say thank you for your consideration, and we're looking forward to be formally part of the town.
Matt, how's the road look? Is it?
Every box has been checked, Mr. Chair.
Way to put him on the spot.
Yeah, no, believe me, it's, like Adam said, I've been 18 months on the job, and I think I was 2 weeks in when we started talking about it. But no, we've been working with the development. It's been great, and trying to bird dog a lot of the issues that have been outstanding. The developer did have their original contractor go away, and he left a pretty good checklist of items that need to be done. We worked with Dan Diffin from CV Mahar on making sure those were done. They worked on it, and I think it was Shaw Brothers was this summer who came up there and got it across the finish line, did the required improvements that we had. There's just two negligible items that we're waiting for. One is one monumentation item that's going to be done this week for all the different monuments for the survey work. And then we have a warranty deed that we're just looking to get, but I think we'll have everything in hand in advance of posting the agenda for the 24th. So that's what we're working at that schedule. So the other two are those last two items are the easy ones. The heavy lifting was done this summer. So, and it's it's a good road. They've done a good job, and also we do set aside a significant amount of money for a couple of years, the first 2 years after that, just in case something does happen. So, as you did with recently with the last acceptance last month.
Adam, do you have anything else?
No, I just wanted to...
Sorry to stop this halfway through, but go ahead.
No, we this has been a long, drawn-out process. It should have been done 3 years ago. The developer just circumstances left us where we are, and I'm just going to be out of town, so I figured I'd just come early.
Glad you did.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Anybody else from the public?
Good evening, Dave Noonan, Meadow Lane. It's going to seem like poor timing, sorry, but I just wanted to actually kind of talk about that in my own way too. Just I know in the last one we talked about possibly going to like an ordinance or doing some sort of workshop, so I just want to kind of bring that to the forefront as a reminder to see if there was anything that was actually spoken about that, or move forward with some sort of workshop around that exact topic. So that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Anybody else from the public? Seeing none, I'll close public discussion and we'll go into legislation and policy. Item 25-115, to hear a report from the tax assessor, reference the revaluation plan. Greetings.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Council. Thank you, Matt, for inviting me here. Let me get my dog and pony show fired up here real quick. While I'm doing that, speaking of veterans, I want to thank you all for your service. Also, if you're a veteran and you're not sure if you are getting your veterans exemption or not, call my office. It would be an honor and a pleasure for me to check that for you. You can look at your tax bill or just give me a call. Either way, you deserve that, and I want to make sure you have it. So, what I'm going to do tonight is go over the reval and how we're progressing. Hit some highlights. I'm not going to get too far out in the weeds as far as numbers and stats. We're just going to kind of do a high overview.
Matt, can we see if we can help with the feedback on his mic? Take a quick pause.
Maybe I need to just get my face closer.
I know. I just feel bad. I feel like it's
No.
impeding your presentation here.
Okay, I'll get right on the mic. Thank you. Also, counselors and Matt, if you have any questions, stop me. I'm more than happy to field questions as we go, and then at the end I'll take questions from the members as well. So yeah, this is a process that was supposed to start in 2024. Prior assessor decided to retire, so now we're just kind of getting the steam rolling on the reval. Some things I'm going to go over are the historical sales ratios, why it's important. We're going to go over the scope of the revaluation, show you a few samples of sales, and then the timeline that we're looking at. The sales ratios, the last market update we did was back in 2018, and you can see we're at 90% of market value. Looking at this graph, and this kind of came to me today, if you, this is the rate of increase of home sales versus the assessed value. So if you look at the first one, 90%, what that's really saying is 10% of the homes are selling for more than the assessed value. And as you go along down to the current year, we're right around 45%. So basically, see if I can mess up this math. So basically, we're 55% of home sales are greater than the assessed value. And that's a trend that is continuing. In fact, these are the sales from October, and I know there's a lot of data here, but what I want to focus on is the average ratio is right around 46%. So we're still, things are still robust as far as sales go. And another thing that I found interesting about these sales is it covers the whole gamut of values. You see the high-priced $1 million homes that are at 30% of market value, but you also see some middle-of-the-road housing stock. Your 200 to 300,000. Everything is selling well above market value. So it's affecting all properties. And why is this important? Following any revaluation, unless the market starts to level off, as soon as you finish a reval, the data's already old. When we went back and looked at this ratio, you know, they did a reval in 2018, and it already, you know, lost, or already lost 10% of its value. So, so it's, you're always chasing a moving target. Where am I here? Yeah, and future sales, you know, I'm not a prognosticator, but, you know, if the feds lower the interest rates, that's gonna just heat up the housing market again, and inventories are already kind of thin, so doing that, it's just gonna keep driving the prices up. There's not much we can really do about that. And the last bullet item, and I mentioned this several times because I think it's really important for this town. Going forward, we're not going to wait 10 years to do a reval and then give sticker shock to everybody. My plan is every 2 or 3 years, we're going to review sales, look at cost of construction, look at the market, and we're going to make just mini adjustments every 2 or 3 years. That's going to make the tax base more stable. It'll keep your tax bill more stable, and you know, giving a shout out to my hometown assessor in Freeport. That's how he does things, and for the past 4 or 5 years, my valuation on my condo has gone up. My tax bill's about the same, and I don't even care because I don't feel, you know, the big jump of valuation. And that's kind of how I think Cumberland should respond to the market. Every 2 or 3 years, a little bump. Nobody feels a thing. So going over the scope of the reval, and I'm just going to go through this quick. We're going to be updating the land and building tables, and that's based on the last 3 years of sales. And what we do is we look at 3 years of sales, and we look at the middle 50% of those sales. So we leave off the outliers that are high and the outliers that are low. So we're just looking at good core data. Also, we're going to be visiting homes, but we're not going to be visiting everyone. We're going to be visiting, doing spot checks on those 3 years of sales. And we understand that, you know, not everybody wants the assessor to come knock on their door. I get it. I don't take it personally. And you don't have to let the assessor in. So if you just say no way, that's fine. Just be polite and answer some questions at the door. You know, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, is your basement finished? You know, just standard questions. And I will cheerfully go on my way. And there will be myself and fellow Cumberland resident Jim Thomas, who has over 30 years of assessing experience. He was the former assessor in the city of South Portland. He was a mentor to me while I was coming up through the assessor ranks. Anybody who knows Jim knows he's a solid guy. So he's going to be helping me with a lot of the analysis and some of the field work. So he's a good guy. Townwide mailers. I'm just now finishing up my Excel spreadsheet to get the townwide mailers out. This mailer is basically going to be information about the reval, along with a QR code where you can scan the QR code and get to your property and review the data that's on your parcel. You know, number of bedrooms and bathrooms, and you know, anything that you see that may not be right. Give me a call, stop by the office, shoot me an email, and we want to make it right. So, and those will hopefully be going out. I don't know when. Well, I'm working with Whitney to get those details finalized. Hopefully soon. And then once we do the data and the analysis, we'll be sending out new valuation letters in the spring. Excuse me. We'll be sending out new valuation letters in the spring with plenty of time for you to review that and come and sit down with me and go over the data. So, like I said, if anything's wrong, we want to fix it and make it right. Also, following the revaluation, speaking of exemptions, homestead, veterans, and blind exemptions, those will all go back to 100% of value. Everyone notices on their recent tax bill, homestead exemption was $14,250. Well, that's because we have to adjust the $25,000 homestead exemption to the town's certified ratio, which last year was 57%. So you do that math and it comes out to $14,250. And that's kind of the scope of the project. Just going over a couple sales that kind of caught my attention. Here's a little home on Gray Road, and you can see that it's sold in 2022, 23, and 25. And the amazing thing is, this home had no improvements. There were no building permits pulled. Nothing about this house has changed, and yet you can see it's jumped from $345 to $380 to recently $425. So that's kind of what the market has been doing. Here's a little condo in Linden Court, sold in 2024 for $470,000. We have it assessed for $194,400, which is 41% of the sale price. So you can see we're way under on that one. Let's go to the ocean. Oceanfront, Dean's Way. Property sold this year for $8 million. I've got it assessed for $2.66. That's 33% of the sale price. So while a rising tide does lift all ships, some of the ones that are, that are lower, like these 33% oceanfront properties, may see a higher valuation increase. And here's a little cape on Tuttle Road, sold in 2023 for $480,000. I've got it assessed for $218,500, and that's 45% of market value. So this is just a small sample of some of the sales that have happened around town. And this slide, the valuation may double, but that doesn't mean your taxes will double. I couldn't get this font any bigger without losing information. This is very important. Your valuation may double, doesn't mean your taxes are going to double. Yeah, I just don't have a strong voice, I guess. So really, the revaluation, it's almost like when you're baking a cake. There's a lot of things that go into it, a lot of ingredients. We're going to look at sales, we're going to look at land and building tables, but then we have to wait for the budget process to happen, and that's school budget, municipal budget. I've got to wait for all that dust to settle. Well, when does that finish up? Usually around May. May is when it usually gets finalized. So, my crystal ball is still pretty cloudy until then, so I can't give you any real estimated mill rates until that stuff comes in. Right now we're at 25.18. It could land anywhere between $10 and $15 a thousand, depending on the budget and how much new valuation that I gain. That's another part of the equation, another part of the baking of the reval is I've still got field work to do. I've got to go gather all the new homes that are being built and all the renovations and all the added square footage. So not only do I have a reval to work on, I still got my regular job to take care of. So it's kind of a busy time. Let's see. Yeah, so the new valuation letters will be mailed out in the spring. Review that and certainly get back to me. And this is just a review of the timetable. We're going to do the property inspection and field reviews this fall and winter. With new valuation determination between January and April. Then the new notices go out in April. Does kind of look like me a little bit. You'll want to come in and talk to me about anything. If you have questions about your valuation, think that the square footage is wrong, ask me, how the heck did you come up with this? That's my job. Come in and talk to me, shoot me an email, give me a call. I'll be more than happy to sit down with anyone from the public. And then, when everything is done, mission accomplished, those tax bills go out, and everybody is very happy at this point. And that is the conclusion of my update. And of course, I'll be more than happy to take any questions. Yes?
Is there, before we start with the council, anybody from the public wants to ask Clint any questions? Steve, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the council. Clint, a quick question. When the new valuation is established in May and or April and letters go out and so forth, we know that our biannual tax bill comes out in September. So is that the point at which the new rate takes effect, or is it retroactive to March?
No, good question, Steve. No, the April tax bill, the tax bill that you get in the spring, is actually the second half of the current tax bill. So yeah, the new tax bills with the new valuations will be effective for the September 26 tax bill. So no, we don't go retro back to that April tax bill.
You all set, Steve?
Yep.
Denise?
Question.
Yes.
When you and James are going around town, are you going to be in a particular vehicle, wearing something particular? I'm imagining people asking about like the weirdos that are casing their neighborhood, like knocking on doors. Is it just so people like know what to expect and know that you're you and it's legit?
That's a great question. We will have identification. We'll have our badges. I'll also coordinate this with the police department downstairs. Just say, hey, we're going to be canvassing this area, so if you get any calls about a weird squirrely-looking guy in a black GMC municipal truck, it'll be me. So,
Okay, thank you.
so yeah, we'll also have some letters from the town if somebody wants, physical evidence as to what the heck we're doing. So yeah, we'll have that all prepared.
Thank you.
Yep.
Andrew?
This might actually be more for you, Matt. At the TRICOM meeting, there was discussion about, sort of the school board not, being able to get the information out, the mill rates and all that before the impact of their budget and on taxes and all that. Will we be able to sort of get a good ballpark? And I'm leery of, like, we throw a number out there and everybody pegs to that number, then the number's different, and there's consternation if the number's not the way that people wished it changed. But where are we on sort of being able to get a good idea before the vote in, June?
Yeah, as we, part of the conversation the other night, as I spoke about it, was probably the best approach that all three bodies will take, because North Yarmouth is also doing a reevaluation at the same time as we are. But for the schools, North Yarmouth, Cumberland, any town that's doing a reval, the best way to go through your budget process is to look at your revenues, your expenses, liabilities that you know are going to be there for sure. You know, health insurance increases, any kind of debt that's out there, contractually obligated spending that you have, you know, with labor contracts, things along those lines. But ultimately, looking at the bottom line number and saying, okay, well, we know, you know, from last year to this year, the increase is going to be, let's say, 2-3%, and conveying that message out there. So if you know that net amount is going to be so much just through the whole budget process, if you know that, you can probably go forward with confidence, at least knowing that you're going to that the mill rate should follow suit with that. But the tax rate really won't get set until when Clint sends out those notifications in April. Everyone's kind of, you know, we're closing in on the home stretch on the town side with the budget. The schools are in the home stretch as well, but they're gunning everything or pointing everything towards the June referendum vote on that. They'll still be in hearings, and I've seen, you know, I've seen towns look at numbers that are too high coming out, like basically the first draft. Like Clint had said, when he sends out those notifications in April, excuse me, as to what those new values are going to be. There's shrinkage that takes place between that moment and when you go to final commitment of taxes, meaning that with the opportunity of public visitation, coming in, talking with the assessor and saying, you know, Mr. Sweat, no, I don't have 34 acres. My lot is 0.34 of an acre in size. And it gives you a good opportunity to shake out some of those errors that take place during that. So you got to be really careful in April that you don't overpromise and underdeliver in August. So my advice to all three entities is to say, you know, look at your budget and look at it soberly and say, okay, what do we have, and how do we know this is going to translate against last year? Now you can take that and compare it to the prior year's tax rate and say, okay, well, we knew it was 25.13 this year. If nothing changed, then the tax rate would be $25 and, you know, or $26 or something like that as an increase. Of course, at the same time, people are opening up those new valuation letters and they're saying, you know, my assessment went to 600 grand and now it looks like I have a $12,000 tax bill instead of a $6,000 tax bill. So it's about messaging at that point, just saying, okay, you know, the town's budget's going to go up by X amount of percent, and the school will have to look at the same thing there to convey that in their messaging. Because if you don't, and I mean, I've seen a town that this summer committed their taxes and they've married themselves to the tax rate, but in error, I think they used the higher value that was from the first draft of their valuation, and it left them about over $2 million short of what they need to meet their obligations. That's about a $230 million error. So that's why you don't say, or that's why I never did as an assessor to my manager and said, well, you know, we're going to set the rate at this. I mean, if I did, I really pushed it, so I could underpromise and overdeliver. That was my goal, and it worked out fine there. But I mean, in a sense, you could look at that and come forward with somewhat of a guesstimate, but it really, until we go to commitment and set the rate in August, you know, really got to look at that year over year. That's the best way to look at it.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Another thing, excuse me, traditionally, about 10% of the citizenry will come in and talk to the assessor, and that may not sound like much, but you know, we've got almost 4,000 parcels, so you know, I'm probably going to have about 400 people come knocking on my door, and sometimes it's just a casual conversation, sometimes it is an error, sometimes they just want to know how the assessing sausage is made, which isn't pretty for anyone. But so yeah, another thing too, when you do receive your new valuation letters, the one thing that I tell people is you look at that letter and you think to yourself, could I sell my house for this value that's on the page? And if it is, then we've done our job. If you look at it and say, wow, this is crazy high or crazy low, whatever the case, then yeah, give me a call, stop in, and we'll talk about it.
Anybody else from the council?
Just one other question from my, the exemptions. You said, basically as soon as you close the books, your data's old and, outdated. With the doing every, 2 to 3 years now, are we looking at those exemptions being, as close to 100% going forward?
Yep, that's another advantage of keeping your data close to 100% is you don't have to adjust. Your ratio doesn't go down, and you don't lose those values. And that's how Maine Revenue Services and Augusta kind of holds the town's feet to the fire to keep things current as far as valuation goes. They make you adjust all your exemptions. They make you adjust your tree growth rates, your open space rates. All that stuff gets adjusted to the ratio. So yeah, you're really benefiting the town by keeping that close to 100%.
Clint, very, very informative. We appreciate you coming in tonight. Thank you, and
Great.
I'm sure we'll be hearing from you in the future.
Great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 25-116, to consider and act on a mass gathering permit application for the 18th annual Turkey Trot to be held on November 27th, 2025. Mr. Manager?
18 years, they've been doing a great job, and the event grows every year, Mr. Chairman. And staff has reviewed this, have no concerns, and they have a good plan going forward. Traffic control and more importantly, runner control, and getting them going in the right direction. But no staff concerns at all. We're fully supportive of it.
Thank you. Is there anybody from the public, before we go to the council on this, like to ask anything? Seeing none, throw it back to the council.
I have nothing, but I can give you a motion.
Go ahead, Jeff.
All right. I move to approve the mass gathering permit application for the 18th annual Turkey Trot to be held on November 27th, 2025.
Second?
Second.
Bob. You can give it to Bob.
Second by Bob. Any discussion from the council? All those in favor? Unanimous. Item 25-117, to consider and act on assign the current credit enhancement agreement for 275 US Route 1 from INS Realty LLC to Addison Capital LLC due to the ownership change of this parcel. Matt?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for that. Yes, this is ultimately a ministerial approach on this. INS Realty owns 275 US Route 1, which was formerly the Hub Insurance building. That is part of TIF 1, but also has a credit enhancement agreement, which refunds a certain amount of their property taxes to them on an annual basis. Council had approved that with the first owner and with the second owner, what happens is Addison Capital has requested, and they've done the transfer between the two parties, but we need ultimately council approval to formally transfer it to Addison Capital, which is acceptable and completely in line with the regulations as set forth with the credit enhancement agreement as well as with TIF 1. So what we're looking at is to do that so they can receive their refund, and we can work with the finance director and tax collector to get them reimbursed for their taxes that they had paid, or at least the portion that they have by right coming to them.
Matt, does this change in the assignment of the credit enhancement agreement, does that extend it, or it just what's existing?
Nope, it just changes it from from the prior owner to the current owner, and then it will expire in 2 years when that'll be done.
Is there anybody from the public who'd like to? See none, I'll turn it back to the council. Andrew.
Matt, just had a question on in the recitals on the first page, section A. it talks about the credit enhancement agreement dated as of blank 2005. Are we just, do we have a date on that from 20 years ago?
To be honest, I think that I can fill in that date. I just have to get it from our files. I think what happened with that, because I saw it as well, I think it was a cut and paste from what they've had all along with the prior two changes. But we will, I'll go back to make sure I get the actual date of when the CEA was approved.
Anybody else from the council?
I have no issue with this. I would give you a motion unless anyone has any thoughts on it.
Go ahead, Bailey.
All right, I can give you a motion. I move to assign the current credit enhancement agreement for 275 US Route 1 from INS Realty LLC to Addison Capital LLC due to the ownership change of the parcel.
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion from the council? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. A final item, 25-118, to set a public hearing date of November 24th, 2025, to consider and act on a request for a credit enhancement agreement for Addison Capital, 275 US Route 1, to begin July 1, 2027, to expire on June 30th, 2047. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Happy to bring this forward tonight. Actually, with the action we're looking for council this evening is to just set it to the public hearing on the 24th. We will at that point have Attorney Alyssa Tibbetts here, as well as representatives from Addison Capital, which, as you may have noticed in your packet, is also known as Lucas Tree. We are very excited about this opportunity because it's now public. We've been working with them for a number of months now to move this forward, probably actually about 6 or 8 months, truth be told. This is an enormous opportunity for the town, for this property as well, for 275 US Route 1. So they'll describe it. I think Mr. Batson will be here as well that evening to answer any questions the council may have. But ultimately, this is a credit enhancement agreement that would bring them to Cumberland, and this would be their entire operations. Their rolling stock currently is housed on Riverside Avenue in Portland, and their corporate offices are currently in Falmouth. And then so they're looking to bring everything right to Cumberland, right over here. Also, one of their plans for the future will be to add a $2 million plus warehouse expansion to the property. There's 9 acres there now, so they're looking to do additional significant investment over and above what they're already doing. And then the structure of the credit enhancement agreement that they're looking to is tying the relationship between the amount of excise taxes that they bring to the town to property relief, almost to a 10-to-1 factor. So for every $5,000, or sorry, for every $50,000 in excise taxes that is paid to the town, they'll be looking for a refund of $5,000 in property taxes, not to exceed how much they pay. So it can't go greater than a certain amount of what their property tax bill is. And there's so you're basically getting a 10-to-1 return from excise taxes to property taxes. Their excise taxes go directly to the bottom line general fund versus TIF revenues, which would go to the TIF fund. So that also has a great benefit to the overall financial bottom line of the town. Councilor Douglas often asks us to find ways to grow the pie. This is another way to grow the pie, which is not property tax based, and it helps us continue. And our finance director showed me a cool chart today that showed how the reliance on property taxes actually has dropped over the years in Cumberland, which I thought was great to have, and we'll share that in the future as well. But right now they're in the $500,000 plus excise tax category. It could be as much as up to $800,000 potentially in the future. To place it in perspective, we roughly take in about $2.4 million in excise taxes annually. So this would be about a 30% increase of what we currently are booking. That doesn't happen overnight. That's about a 10-year occurrence from if nothing changed. So we've worked with them. Alyssa has specifically, because she knows this business better than most, as well with their attorney to work on the language. TIF committee had it to review last week. So they've had a chance to go through this and explore that a bit with Alyssa. We will have the requisite 8x10 color glossy photos with a paragraph on the back of each one to be in the Thanksgiving theme. But we will have a lot of that analysis as well, ready for the next meeting. And then there was a question that was asked when we were at the TIF committee about like something we could put in comparison to this to the scope of this project.
Vining Way.
No, we were talking about even bigger, Cumberland Crossing. Cumberland Crossing, to put things into perspective, which is also a very awesome and successful development. And it's done extremely well. But the property taxes paid for all the houses in there, 107 properties, or sorry, 75 out of 107 properties have vehicles over there. So their property taxes are roughly $916,000 are paid by Cumberland Crossing. The excise taxes are about $26,500. So it's pretty amazing development to have that come into town. So obviously staff's overjoyed about it. We love the fact that it's going to still remain a taxable property. It's going to help our bottom line significantly, and it's bringing a lot of really great jobs that pay very well to the town. Maybe they're moving some from other communities, but they're coming to Cumberland, and that's what I love about it. So I hate to be competitive like that, but this is where I work, and these are who I care about. so that's we'll have more, obviously. So that was about the elevator pitch that I could make on it right now, but Alyssa will do a much better job describing it when we get together in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
You're welcome, sir.
This is not a public hearing. We're just going to set a date. Is there any, going back to the council, any questions from Matt before we take this item up?
I'll just say one thing. Matt, thank you for getting this done. I was very excited about this when you told me many months ago, and I think this is a really big win for us financially. So I'm excited to see where this goes.
Thank you.
If there's no more questions, I'll accept a motion.
I'll be happy to give you one. I move to set a public hearing date of November 24th, 2025 to consider an act on a request for a credit enhancement agreement for Addison Capital at 275 US Route 1 to begin July 1st, 2027 and expire on June 30th, 2047.
Give you a second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any more discussion from the council? All those in favor? Unanimous? And with that, we'll go into new business. Andrew?
I have nothing tonight.
Me?
Really?
Okay, I'll be quick. On October 28th, we had a Coastal Waters Commission meeting. Matt, I'm looking to you. There was kind of general consensus about the plank program I had loosely discussed. I don't know if Chief Rumsey communicated that to you, but I would love to see if and where that can go, so we could try to match that grant with no taxpayer impact. We have a library advisory meeting on the 19th. Reminder that Greeley Center for Performing Arts will be hosting The Sound of Music, November 21st through 23rd. Tickets are still available. I will be attending the matinee on Saturday. My children will probably ruin the show, so I wouldn't recommend going that time. And then
Going on Sundays, so I'm good.
I will be bringing my 3-year-old son, so pray for us. Any Matt, quick question for you, and we can talk offline about this, but is there any update on the cell tower proposal on the 4 side? Has that gone anywhere? Just randomly thinking about it.
That's great, Councilor Douglas. We were actually just discussing it at department heads this morning.
Oh, okay.
And they do not have anything right now going forward in front of the planning board.
Okay.
Construction or anything along those lines outside of what they got their original approvals. And I think what they're doing is they're working with the feds, trying to get their licensing lined up there.
Okay.
And that's taking a little bit longer than
I
anticipated.
wonder why.
They-
All right.
They haven't been able to get a response for about 38 days, I think.
Okay. All right. Just a reminder, SNAP benefits are still suspended. Thanksgiving is coming up. We have a food pantry in town. Anything anyone can give, I think would be greatly appreciated. And that's all.
Robert?
$100 for the food pantry.
That's what I'm talking about, Bob.
Boom.
I can't help but put it a little bit in perspective. I shared a little bit with Matt this afternoon. Many years ago, I was 18 in boot camp. It seems like it was a complete lifetime ago. My 21st birthday was in Vietnam. Again, it was a whole lifetime ago. And just a kid, didn't know anything. It was just a surreal experience. They didn't pay me anything either. It was, and I didn't save a single penny. So today, you know, I have an opportunity to give back, and you know, you have to give cheerfully because it means a whole lot more when you do. And so I'm grateful to have a little extra, and I know that there are so many people in this country that don't have it, and you know, we as a country need to turn that around. And so I appreciate the people who say thank you for your service, but it's a little bit more than that. It's you know, I know as a kid, you know, I never gave any thought of service. It was, you know, here I am. How long am I going to be here? And when am I going to get out? And when am I going ashore? And you know, the things that kids think about. But anyways, that's all I got.
Denise?
I'm good.
Jeff?
All right, got a couple things. So, first of all, to all the veterans in Cumberland, just tomorrow is Veterans Day, and thank you for your service and dedication to our country. So, I'll match Bob's $100. So we're gaining on the, what is it? We need to get 180 people, Bob, as they make the goal. Is that what it was?
We're closer to our goal.
Yeah, we're getting a little closer. Just a little recap on the West Cumberland meeting. You know, for the folks that weren't there, it wasn't televised, but just wanted to bring the rest of the council up to speed. So I'll go quick, but you know, there was conversation about private versus public road and property taxes, failed business ventures. I mean, with any business venture, there's always risk. You know, Mineral Springs welcoming the people to the community. The lot next door to the football field, you know, there was some suggestions about that becoming a park, but that's owned by a private landowner. A crosswalk on Route 100 with lights similar to what we have on Main Street. Traffic light at Route 100 in Skillins. A trail system so that we no longer have the sidewalk to nowhere, so to say. And use of the West Cumberland Community Hall. And then future businesses with some land over in a discussion. And I think the biggest thing that came out of this meeting that I really think is a fairly easy ask for those citizens is down on Route 1, we have the Welcome to Cumberland business-friendly signs. And, you know, one of the requests that came out of there was to duplicate those signs on Route 100. And honestly, I don't think it's a big ask. And part of me thinks, should we do the same thing on Route 9? I mean, we only have 3 gateways into this town, and I think the cost is minimal. So, I mean, I think it would be good to try to move that forward, but, you know, obviously you folks have some input on that, so I'll leave that to discussion, but I got one other thing that regarding, other than the sign, if you guys have any comments on that.
I would be in support of that. One thing I will say about the businesses is sometimes I think it's easy to say we don't have any businesses in the community, but I just think some of them are just not consumer facing, right? Like the Lucas Trees of the world that are coming, or the lawyer, the photographer, you know, there might not be like your everyday consumer business, but I do think when you put some thought into it, there is a good amount of businesses in town. There's definitely opportunity for more, but, you know, just my opinion.
I think it's a good idea, Jeff. Chump change.
Okay. Looks like everyone's on board.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last thing I had is, you know, we had the TRICOM meeting and we had the growth enrollment study funding discussion. And I got thinking about that, and, you know, I'm looking at it as we got a couple things going on. We're doing the enrollment study, but each town's gonna get a growth study out of this. And we talked about a three-way split on that, so a third, a third, a third. And I got thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, North Yarmouth's gonna get a growth study, Cumberland's gonna get a growth study. Both of us need the schools. Well, the schools third is really coming from both of us, so why aren't the two towns just splitting this down the middle and saying, North Yarmouth, you take 50%, Cumberland, you take 50%, and the school gets their enrollment study paid for? I mean, it's a little bit different than we talked about, but I can't wrap my head around the school's third, because to me, it's almost like it's funny money, because it's just made up of our tax revenue. So that was the last thing I had.
I don't really have anything. We did have that TRICOM meeting. I didn't hear a lot about consolidating services, and I know, Bob, you were busy at another meeting, and thank you. But you hit the nail on the head when you asked that question. I mean, North Yarmouth just put in a new stump dump. We got one. You know, that's something we could have split if they'd come to us. We've talked before about doing a sidewalk sweeper. Splitting the cost, instead of them having one, we have one. I don't know what the joint standing committee between North Yarmouth and Cumberland, and I don't know where North Yarmouth is gonna be, but I think this is right in line with where Bob has gone with the consolidation of services. There's no sense in keep duplicating everything, where we could save them a pile of money and we could save money. So, that's all I have. Anything else from the council?
So one more thing you just actually reminded me. Tentatively, Matt, do you remember the exact date? I'm trying to look at my calendar. I don't.
Yes, sir.
It's not showing up right now. But we do have a joint standing committee, just us, North Yarmouth, scheduled for
December 16th, 4 p.m.
Yeah, 16th.
Good.
So that was at the end of the meeting. We got together and tried to figure that out of a time that actually worked.
Be interesting to see what their feedback is on combining,
Yeah.
doing stuff, so. Denise?
I am not a member of the Joint Standing Committee, but I will be in attendance, so prepare yourselves.
Will do.
That's good.
You've been served.
What I mean is, there's gonna be more people than usual coming, and it's not an attack on anyone. We are just interested in having a conversation, so it's like, you have more team members than us, you know, whatever.
Yeah, you know, I was
Just
on-
saying.
Denise, I was on that committee for 8 years, 9 years, and you'd get a council in North Yarmouth that was 100 miles an hour, yes, let's consolidate. And then one election later, yeah, we don't want anything to do with it. So it's getting them to, the one thing I've seen from Cumberland all these years, Bob and I've been here, is we're always extending the invitation. Let's talk about doing stuff together, and we just gotta get a willing dance partner, that's all.
Mike,
Alright.
before we adjourn though, on the funding formula, I mean, I'm just curious what everyone else's head's at on the third versus just splitting it down the middle.
They say it was gonna be like $7,500.
Yeah, something like that.
Mr. Chairman, if it'd be helpful to the discussion, I know we're looking to have conversation here shortly between Manager Barnes, Superintendent Porter, and myself. And so I could probably come back with an estimate on that and
Yeah.
float Councilman Hollick's question by that as well.
Yeah.
Because, I mean,
Yep.
there's a lot of logic behind
There is.
what Jeff said.
I wasn't sure if there was some sort of like other funding that was covering like their portion. You know what I'm
DOE
trying to
or
say, like
something?
state-funded resources that might be covering what that was, so it
Yeah.
would be good to understand that and also.
I think it was
the
just
total cost.
straight expenditure.
Yeah, I would say 50-50 is fair.
Anything else from the council?
No.
Tig, get well, please. We had a couple other counselors under the weather this past week, and we're glad to see you somewhat recovered, so praying for you, Tig.
Oh, and thanks for the flu shot drive at the fire department. We passed by and did that, and I was surprised there's like no one there, but maybe it's just because I showed up early, but yeah. Thank you for providing that service. It was very easy to just run by after I picked the kids up from school and we're good, and then I got strep the day after, so at least it wasn't the flu.
I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Get strep.
We have a motion. Do we have a second to adjourn?
Second.
All over the place. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night, folks.